Embrace a world of elegance and sustainability with Swisstech Aluminium. Swisstech Aluminium. Live in elegance.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sarasi Tilakaratna. I would, on behalf of Training Research and Development Unit, I would like to warmly welcome all of you for today's program, that is CPD course on Basic Contract Administration and Best Project Management Tools. So today is the 7th day of our total series, one more day to go. So we believe, ladies and gentlemen, that you have gained one of the best experiences in your life. So let's get ready for the 7th session of our program. So before that, let me have the honor of inviting one of the biggest strengths in Central Engineering Consultancy Bureau, one of the foremost engineering consultancy services provider in Sri Lanka. He is a pioneer of evolution of CCB Lab as a well-established commercial high-end laboratory, Additional General Manager, Natural Resources Management and Laboratory Services. Engineer Viraj Dias, dear sir, over to you.
Thank you, Sarasi. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Viraj Dias. I'm the Additional General Manager at the Natural Resource Management and Laboratory Services of the Central Engineering Consultancy Bureau. So I think I'm not going to detail out the CCB. In our MS or NLS, that means Natural Resource Management and Laboratory Services, you should provide the CCB laboratory services, and starting from the laboratory and geotechnical investigation is that expand into the various activity, which links to the EIA studies and the feasible studies on one hand, and also detailed geotechnical investigation work, and also laboratory startup establishing the base laboratory services within the country, and also started some of the international services, providing international service to the many sectors of the world. And also very recently, and a very expanded way, we started the structural assessment of building. CCB laboratory is one of the leading government state-of-art laboratory in Colombo, equipped with high volume capacity and around the clock capabilities promote efficient processing of test data and reporting. The laboratory competence of testing and calibration in accordance with the requirement of ISO IEC 17025. That is one of the fundamental requirements at the laboratory services. And also with the continued satisfactory operation of the laboratory quality management system in accordance with the requirement of the ISO 9001-2015, also we have already established. The laboratory having the basic brochures, and you can easily download it from the CCB website, Link is also given in the this presentation. I think one of the primary aspect is the concrete technology for the construction industry, but I'm not bringing it to the very basic testing. The major part of the laboratory development is the meeting to the durable aspect of the laboratory testing. I think CCB is the only one laboratory in Colombo having the permeability characteristics, abrasion testings, corrosion detections, and also many more. Even the scanning capacities and non-destructive testing, various aspects of concrete technology, and also which links to the basic laboratory, like aggregate, soil, concrete, cement, steel, asphalt, and the pavement blocks, clay bricks, and admixture. Those are very common. Whatever the thing, you can very easily get the total information just downloading from the CCB laboratory concrete brochure. It's called the concrete cement testing facilities. This is the link is given with this presentation, and you can nicely download it from our website at CCB.
Mr. Viraj,
now,
excuse me.
Yeah.
Mr. Viraj, can you share the presentation, please?
Sure.
Yeah,
I will do it. I will do it.
Yeah.
Another important part is the soil testing. When you ask if the soil testing is basically the same analysis and the many more, but I'm not talking of these parameters really. But when you start with the various design aspects, present stage is finding the important parameters of the soil and rock. Fortunately, CCB is recently established, that means more than 5 to 6 years before. CCB is now capable of handling the shear strength parameters of elastic modulus, Poisson ratios of in rocks. That was really started from the project Umayyad. I can remember they are searching with the many parts of the country, finding the way to find out the Poisson ratios and elastic parameters. At that time, really, we thought we had to be quickly established these capacities, and we brought into the very active state. And at the same time, many shear strength parameters, like a consolidation parameters and the shear strength parameters, CU and CD test, that means consolidation drain and consolidation undrain testing, and also direct shear, and many advanced soil testing parameters. Now we can provide any services in a very high rank and high capacity. Coming to the steel is a very common and important parameter for many stages, even the monitoring stages, even the purchasing stages, and also at the time of designing the stages. I think CCB is totally equipped with the all steel testing laboratory capacity. I think similarly, I mentioned to you, there are many presentations, slides. I have included the primary brochures like a steel testing laboratory brochure. You can just download it. You can get the total detail of the laboratory capacity under the steel testing laboratory. Now coming to the chemical and environmental laboratory and the EIA studies and IE studies. Now CCB very initially started the primary requirement like concrete, soil, and aggregate. I'm sure that now the project is never going to move up with the, if the project is not going to check up with the environmental management plan. Under the environmental management plan, there are key elements. You need to check the water quality disturbances and noise and vibration disturbances, and also the air quality with the surrounding. So those all monitoring parameters related to the major environmental management plan, we are capable of providing. After that, I think we move into the very substantial coverage with the EIA study, which links to the coastal, port, fishery harbor rehabilitation projects, irrigation, water supply and sanitation project, structural development, that means towers, apartment roads, and railways, and also the power supply and socio-economic and livelihood restoration project like the Port City project. With that, really we came up with a very high standard into the environmental assessment. That means we are ready to provide many environmental related pre-feasibility studies and the feasibility study, and also integrated pollution control licensing capacities, water, Clean Water Act permits we can provide, protection license for the industrial services we can provide now, water quality assessment, and also invasive species study, wetland delineation studies. Those matters really link with our environmental aspects of our services. Now, coming to the geotechnical subsurface exploration and drilling. So this is also very common part of everyone is knowing that geotechnical investigations now everywhere is available. But what is the unique of this CCB laboratory? We exposed to the international services, where I just highlighted the left-hand side in the geotechnical investigations, which links the many projects related to the hydropower development. We did the many, I think, substantial geotechnical investigation reporting and services, which links to the Uganda, Malawi, Tanzania, and Rwanda, and even the Uganda, many projects, even including the EIA project. The important aspects what I want to highlight here, when we're handling with international projects, really, our reviewers are not in the Sri Lankans, really. It's come like a very outstanding foreign reviewers like Alama International Germany, Taisi Japan, PB Consultant Australia, and Farab Iran, and CTI Engineering International Japan. So all these consultants really highly recommended our services at the end of our submissions. Now, I just want to highlight some of the water resource development and management aspects within the CCB, because natural resource management generally linked with the water resource development and the management, and that particular unit and the division also having a separate brochure. I'm sure that that particular brochure at the moment is cannot download it from the website, but we will send it to you to the website. So I think under the water resource development, they have a large capacity in numerical modeling, detailed assessments, and doing the many design stages under the water sector. Another important thing is water sector. We just not in touch with the Sri Lankan content. We move into the East African content, and we have completed the many projects really. Fortunately, all the projects move with the hydropower development, but that is our fundamental knowledge tank at the moment at the CCB. I'm sure that we had the EIA and SCA projects, which covered from our unit, which undertook the many EIA assignment, foreign assignment, first time in the country. And we completed many projects from the EIA end. That's all from my end in order to just to introduce the CCB laboratory services. So I think, thank you very much once again, giving this opportunity to explore my laboratory capacity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your valuable thoughts and brief description. Thank you very much, sir. So ladies and gentlemen, let me have the honor of inviting one of the biggest pillars of organizing this event, course moderator. He's a chartered engineer, graduated from University of Peradeniya, Engineer Nalin Sanjay De Silva. Dear sir, over to you.
Thank you, Sarasi. Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, very good evening. But unfortunately, I'm not going to open my video because right now I'm experiencing power cut here. So let me straight away go to the presenter without switching on my video. But I would like to highlight certain areas where we had our ground rules to all the audience. We're generally not using this chat box while the presenter on his presentation mode. And we are using the chat box and the rest of these raise hand and even the YouTube chatters and at the Q&A session only. That could be at the latter part, hopefully somewhere around 9 o'clock. We'll finish up our main presentation and then we'll move into the Q&A session. At the same time, if you have the same power cut or signal failures just like me, you can keep your attendance mark, or else if you fail to mark your attendance, you can keep 2-3 screenshots with some intervals of 30 minutes to prove, if it is demanded by the training unit, to prove your attendance. Otherwise, the main procedure, the key procedure is to mark your attendance through a Google form shared through our chat box and the YouTube channel, YouTube streaming, while we start our Q&A session or somewhere in between. Those are the key ground rules. And as Sarani well mentioned today, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the 7th session out of 8, which means most of the latter part segments of our CPD program. And today's presentation is about the role of the project manager and the contract administrator in UAE in particular, and our presenter would cover some areas of even the personal and family life in UAE as well, which is very important for those who are wishing to move to UAE and the Middle East and or the MENA region, Middle Eastern and the North African region. This presenter, namely Engineer Dinidu Siruvikum, whom is my batchmate back in University of Peradeniya, and he obtained his basic degree from civil engineering. And right now he has worked in many of these international arena, especially in the Middle Eastern region. This charming gentleman who's not selfish at all to share his knowledge, the wealth of knowledge, which he has more than 15 years of the international experience, now currently serve to the company called Nakil, which is quite famous in the Middle Eastern region, and he now works under the capacity of contracts manager. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on screen Engineer Dinidu Suryakum. Dinidu, it's over to you, please.
Thanks, Nalin. Hope everyone can hear me.
Yes, good. Sounds good. Dinidu, please proceed.
Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you for that introduction. Let me share my screen so we can go to the presentation. Today, we are going to discuss about the role of the project manager and contract administrator in UAE or Middle East, some of the roles. We are not going to discuss all the things. And personal and family life in UAE. When I select this topic, organizers, especially Nalin, told me that there are plenty of people, construction professional in the industry. They are looking for opportunities in the Middle Eastern region because situation in Sri Lanka is not good. So they are really focusing and trying to get an opportunity to work in this part of the world. So I thought of giving some guidelines or some understanding to these professionals so they can, which can be helpful to them to find an opportunity. So let's go to the agenda. Okay. So I have selected few topics which have not been covered in previous sessions. I have seen previous sessions and they have covered some of important topics, and I have covered some other topics which were not part of the previous sessions. First, I will give an idea why UAE is considered as a great place for a career, pursue a career in construction industry. Okay. Then, in my belief, I feel that contract administration skills are important to all construction industry professionals. And let's see why, especially this part of the world. And after that, we will go into a bit technical things, the course contract administration under FITIC type of contract. So I will cover basically commencement of the works and submission of the guarantees and insurance policies and escrow requirements. And then I will go into change management process. I have seen that Engineer Priyanka has covered valuation of variation and identification of variations previously. I'm not going to repeat that, but I will discuss some important processes in change management process, and then substantial completion and handing over of the work. Okay. Finally, then I will discuss the life here in UAE. So you can get an understanding about the life here. Yeah. So in UAE, so I have just given you a map of UAE. You must have heard about UAE. You know about Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Sharjah. So I just wanted to emphasize the scale of this country. So Abu Dhabi is the capital of the country, and you can see that major portion of the country is Abu Dhabi. But real economic hub is Dubai. Most of the things is happening here in Dubai. So, and there are 7 emirates in UAE. So primarily Abu Dhabi and Dubai and Sharjah is driving the economy of the country. So let's see what are the key advantages if you want to pursue a career here in UAE. So real estate and construction industry account for substantial portion of the economy. And recently, from all the news and reports, we hear that construction industry and real estate industry is booming. Most of the projects recently launched by prime developers like Emma, Nakil, they are already sold out. So when the properties get sold out, these are off-plan properties, then construction has to happen. There will be a definite boom in construction industry. So which is good for construction industry professionals. We know that Saudi Arabia also there's substantial increase in demand for construction industry professionals because projects like NEOM is getting underway. So some of the professionals here, experienced professionals in UAE, getting better packages. They are moving to Saudi Arabia. So there is opportunity for fresh ones, fresh professionals, especially young graduates. If they are they are participating in this program. So I feel that there's opportunity for them. They can come and start a career here in UAE. Then if you get an opportunity to work here, so there's a great opportunity that you will be working in a multinational company or international company like EMA or WSP or Turner International. They bring their know-how into the region. These are international consultants. They bring their know-how into the region. So if you get lucky enough to get an opportunity in these companies, your experience will be immense. You will be exposed to the world-class technology. So that is one of the advantages. And the most favorite one of us is the salaries. We have seen that Gulf countries, they pay extremely good salaries for talented professionals. Especially we know that Sri Lankan engineers or professionals, construction industry professionals, they're really talented. But they need to find their right opportunity. They need to improve their skills, and right opportunity will enhance their career. The other one, so we have seen that many professionals who has worked here gain international experience. They got better opportunities even in Australia, Europe, UK, or USA. So there is a window for you guys. If you really have a plan to migrate into these countries, so you guys can come here, get good experience. You can arrange your finance, then you can migrate into these countries. Yeah? Why basic contract administration skills are important for all construction industry professionals? So there are engineers, there are quantity surveyors, then commercial managers. Why they need to know contract administration? So in a construction contract, especially this part of the world, they are contractual. They are more contractual. So the relationship is driven by contractual terms. So you have a developer, design consultants, supervision consultant, cost consultants. Many consultants are involved in the project. pre-contract stage and post-contract stage. So each consultant, they have different terms of agreement with the developer. So if you are working for one of them, you should know this term, at least basic terms. So by knowing these terms, so when you work, so you will know your rights. Sometimes if you work for a developer and you want to get things done from the consultant, so if you have a basic understanding, so you know to whom to you approach and who will give you the report. And same time, you should know your obligations as well. Assume that you are an engineer, supervising engineer at a site. So you should know the terms of the contract signed by employer and the contractor. So your thorough understanding of these terms will help you to perform your works better at site. Then the other one, we have seen many a times, especially in this part of the world. For example, so when instruction is given to the contractor for a variation, sometimes we have seen that construction managers has issued instruction to contractors and contractors have performed the task. But when he is asking for their cost within the payment applications, then only they find that these instructions are not authorized by the proper personnel. So you should get understanding of these terms, so you will not go beyond your authorized authority. So that's very important. By issuing an instruction for which authority is not granted to you, so end of the day, you might lose your job. So you should know your contractual limit. The other one is you can communicate efficiently with the right stakeholders. So if you know the terms, you can address your queries or request to the right person. So if the project management consultant is on board, so you will not directly approach your supervision consultant. So you will assume that you are an employer's personnel and you want to get something done. So easiest way, you will assign that task to project management consultant. You will not go and ask supervision consultant to perform the task. So that's why there is a project management consultant on board. So let's go to our technical points. So today I'm going to discuss contract administration through FIDIC 99 contract, which is called the Red Book, the first edition of the Red Book. The latest edition is second edition, 2017 version. But in this part of the world, most of the contracts are based on FIDIC 99 first edition book. So this contract is developed for construction contract for building and engineering works and used in many developments in UAE. So typically, these building contracts are lump sum basis contract, while infrastructure projects are remeasurable basis. But you will see that if you want to work here, they don't use FIDIC 99 version as it is. They customize it based on developers' requirements. For example, Nakil, they have removed the engineer itself. They have given authority for employers representative and introduced engineer as an engineering consultant. Yeah. Who is the contract administrator under FIDIC 99? So employer and contractor has already agreed upon a contract. That contract clearly says that employer will appoint an engineer to act as the contract administrator. But Can the engineer perform his duties by himself? Probably not, because there are many other stakeholders in the project, like project management consultant. Employer will not satisfy himself with the engineer. Engineer is kind of impartial person. He will do his duties as per the contract, terms of the contract. He will not go beyond that. But to perform or fulfill employer's requirements, typically, especially in large scale projects, employer will appoint a project management consultants. So I have prepared this small table which shows that the main designation, main personals in each consultant. So project manager, they have a project manager or director. So commercial manager, QS, planning engineer, and construction managers. So employer also have these personnel, most of them, contractor definitely. But all of these people, they need contract administration skills. What will happen if they don't have sufficient contract administration skills? So they will do erroneous assessments. They will interpret their rights and others' obligations erroneously. So this misinterpretation of conditions of contract will lead to disputes and even end up in courts, legal issues, unnecessary time-taking hassles. So therefore, before these consultants or the employers employ their staff, they thoroughly check whether their staff they are planning to hire, whether they have basic contract administration skills. But if you are planning to join as a manager or commercial manager or a project manager, they will check whether they have thorough understanding of these conditions, not only basic ones. So if you are planning to pursue a career in this part of the world, so I highly encourage you guys, go through these terminologies, and understand them well. Read them. Take a FIDIC 99 contract. Read them from beginning to end and apply them. Maybe you are not working as a commercial guy or a project manager where you need all these terms and conditions, but refer them. So that will be useful whenever you need them. So moving into next topic, so let's assume that letter of acceptance is issued for a contract, construction contract, and your services are required for the project. Maybe as a project manager, or a resident engineer, or a contract administrator, senior QS, or commercial manager. But your services are required. Let's see how to start a project. So this table I extracted from a FIDIC form of contract. Most of you guys must have seen it. If you have not seen it, please refer it. It gives you basic guidelines or basic timeline for most of the event, most of the important events. So if you have got a letter of acceptance, next step probably will be to establish the commencement date. So if you are contractor's personnel, you will ask employer to notify the commencement date. Or if you are employer's personnel, you need to make sure that commencement date is established in accordance with the contract. So if you refer clause 8.1, so it clearly says that you need to commence the work within 42 days prior to after LOA. So, but there is a tricky points of here. So assume that you are employer's personnel and you issue a commencement date. Once you issue the commencement date, so contractor will ask you different things. So he need to apply for building permit. He need to commence the work. He will go and request authority that I am the contractor for so-and-so project. Please give me the authority to proceed. But authority will not be in position to issue the building permit unless employer has obtained necessary approval. So if you are an employer's personnel, so make sure that you are ready with the authority approvals prior to commencing the work. The next one, contractor will request for site possession. Once you commence the work, contractor has to commence the work at site. If staggered site possession is not there, contractor will submit a program requesting site possession for full area. Assume that you have ordered a contract for 250 villas. You have not mentioned anything particularly about site possession in conditions of the contract. Contractor will come and say that I need to commence the work at all the 250 villas. So if you are working for pre-contract stage also, please make sure that you can provide this site possession. The next is the IFC drawings. Especially this part of the world, contract documents are not sufficient. Contract documents contain many tender queries or post-tender clarifications. So engineer tend to issue IFC drawing prior to commencement of the work. So make sure that those are ready. Then one of the other ones is the supervision consultants. Now I have worked with the employer for some time. I know that sometimes we have appointed the contractor, but consultant is not on board. Can you get a consultant on board immediately? No, consultant has to recruit people and it takes time. And without supervision consultant or an engineer, you cannot commence the work. So what will happen if you don't have these ready? So employer will delay the project and contractor will entitle for EOT and prolongation cost. And these costs are not small amounts because especially contractors preliminaries, staff, they will mobilize, but they don't have anything to do. So they will ask compensation and they have to maintain their offices. So it is really important that if you are commencing the works, make sure that these basic requirements are fulfilled or you are ready to fulfill them. By my experience, I have seen many contracts at very early stage of the project, contractors and employers getting into dispute or disagreement over these matters. Okay, we'll go to the next step, submission of the guarantees. So when project is commenced, so there are certain requirements to be fulfilled.
Dinidu, highly apologize.
Yes, sir.
Highly apologize to disturb you. I would rather happy if you can spare a few 2-3 minutes to summarize in Sinhalese as well once you are simply moving from one milestone to the other. And please,
yeah, okay, got it.
take 2-3 minutes.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, thank you. Then we'll discuss about escrow counts. What are escrow counts? In this part of the world, most of the properties are sell off plan. So employer or developer design and they went to the market and they sell properties, obviously with the basic approval from authorities, but they sell properties with a plan, set of drawings. And on what guarantee buyers will buy? We have seen that in 2009 financial crisis, many projects were sold off plan. When financial crisis hit the market, the developers couldn't fulfill their obligations, but buyers, they didn't have security. So that's why this part of the world, especially Dubai and Abu Dhabi, now it is compulsory to have a escrow account. Escrow account is a trust account that opened in a bank by the developer. It is a must. It is by law. If developer is planning to sell properties off plan, you must have escrow account. So when escrow account is there, so when you sell properties, buyers will not pay money to the developer. They will deposit their money in escrow account. Escrow account or the bank will pay the developer based on the progress of the works. So there is a guarantee. Money will not be utilized for some other projects. So if you have bought a projects, so your money will be spent only on that particular projects. So if you have escrow account in your projects, so your bank guarantee is getting a bit complicated. So escrow bank will decide the format of the guarantees. So you need to make sure that the guarantees, advance payment and performance bond guarantees are submitted in the format provided by escrow account holders. So if you are a part of an employee of a finance department or commercial department or even projects department, whether it is employer or contractor, you should have a common understanding or general understanding about these processes. So you should coordinate with these stakeholders to get your performance security approved. We have seen many a times post-contract stage, people are discussing about the format of the guarantees and delay in the commencement of the projects. Without performance security, you cannot commence the work. It's highly risky work. Then we will go to the insurance policies. When you commence a work, you cannot proceed with the works without insurance policies, especially contractors all risk policy and third party liability. What is contractors all risk policy? Normal contractor get these insurance policies. Sometimes developers also provide. For example, Naki, we have agreements with the insurance providers. So we provide contractors all risk policy and third party liability for most of the projects. But contractors all risk policy is to insure the works, plant and materials and contractors documents. Why we need to insure the works? Assume that you progress with the works and something happens, let's say fire or a flood or even a structural failure. So contractor has spent the money and developer has paid the money. So in that case, contractors all risk policy will come into place. So they will pay you to reestablish the development. So typically it is contract price plus 15%. Then the other one is the third party liability. So without these insurance policies, we should never start work at site. Third party liability is to insure adjacent properties and third parties. Assume that you commence the work at site and some third party get damaged. And you will have to compensate. If you have insurance, insurance will compensate. Otherwise, if it is contractor's fault, contractor will have to pay from his pocket. Especially bodily injury. Third party personnel. Compensation will be substantial. So make sure that you have these insurance policies in place prior to commencement of the work. So workman compensation insurance, you must have heard that it is basically a contractor will have insurance policy for their personnel and professional indemnity insurance for design team for their negligence or erroneous reports or the recommendations. So PI insurance will cover if a professional company does a mistake so it will cover the risk of that. So it is important that the consultant or PM, a commercial manager, whether you are working for contractor, consultant, or developer, you should make sure that these insurance policies are in place and valid. One of the very important things. Next, ladies and gentlemen, we'll move to the next part, change management process, because I think we are running short of time a little bit. Why do we need a change management process? We have conditions of the contract. Everything is written there. So why do we need a change management process? So if you check clause 3.1 of the conditions of the contract, engineer's duties are clearly defined. Engineer is given the authority to determine certain things in the contracts. Engineer can provide approvals for the drawings. Engineer can approve variations. Engineer can instruct variations. Engineer can determine extension of time. So all these are given in the contract. Why do we need a separate change management process? So if you read this clause carefully, so there is a catch here. Please read with me. In the 3.1, it says, if the engineer is required to obtain the approval of the employer before exercising a specified authority, the requirement shall be stated in the particular conditions. Employer undertake not to impose further constraint on the engineer's authority, except as agreed with the contract. So once the contract is signed, employer cannot force engineer to do certain things as per his wish. If he wants certain things to be approved by the employer prior to instructing the contractor, he has to mention in particular conditions. So in this part of the world, we have seen that many developers, they modify this clause. They introduce certain conditions. They limit authority of the engineer. Otherwise, the engineer has sole authority to determine things under contract. So they mention it typically that before instructing any variations or sometimes even approvals, engineer shall obtain approval of the employer. So then things get complicated. So in a lump sum contract, one of the main elements is a change management process. If there are no changes, the things will go as per the contract. But most of the projects, 99% or 100% of the projects, you will see variations. So you need a change management process to administrate the changes. So I have prepared this simplified version of the change management process. Typically, you will have, in a typical structure of a large scale project, you will have the developer or the employer, then project management consultant, then engineer, cost consultant, and the contractor. So if someone identified a variation, potential change requirement, so consultant or project management consultants will review it. Engineer or cost consultant will draft and submit for project manager's approval. So project management consultant will review, and then if he is satisfied with the content of the change requirement, so he will issue it for employer's approval. So then only engineer can issue an instruction. So then engineer will instruct the contractor to proceed with the work. After the instruction, so consultant or the engineer has to evaluate the variation. So then it has to be formalized through a variation order process, a variation order. So this is a very simplified version, but I will now take you to a change management process chart prepared by one of the leading project management consultancy group. So I know that you may not be able to read this. I just want to emphasize that, okay, this is a complicated process. And many personnel are involved, many companies, and a lot of requirements to be fulfilled. So if you can improve your career, if you can enhance your skills, and you can be a part of this personnel. So we have projects, we have many consultants, project manager, the cost consultant, engineer, employer, contractor. Each company has substantial amount of opportunities because this complicated process has to be administered properly. Otherwise, it will lead into disputes and even to legal cases. So you have now opportunity. If you are looking for an opportunity in overseas, so improve your skills. Ladies and gentlemen, let me move into the next topic. Okay, so we have discussed now. Sorry, Nalin, I could repeat that in Sinhala. Mama me metanandi kata kare then construction industry opportunities ගොඩක් තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ ඔයාලා engineer කෙනෙක් විදිහට වැඩ කරනවා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. නැත්නම් QS කෙනෙක් විදිහට වැඩ කරනවා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Quality assurance team එකේ ඉන්නවා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙමත් නැත්නම් finance team එකේ ඉන්නවා වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. ඒ ඕන කෙනෙක්ට opportunities තියෙනවා මේ mega scale projects වල opportunities තියෙනවා. වැදගත් දේ තමයි මේ employers ලගේ requirement fulfill කරන්න පුළුවන් විදිහට අපි skills develop කරගන්නවා. අපි ඒව අඳුර ගන්නවා. එතකොට තමයි ඔයාලට job එකක් හොයාගන්න ලේසි වෙන්නේ. නැත්තම් visit visa එකක් ගහගෙන මෙහෙට ඇවිල්ලා job එකක් ටක් ගාලා ගන්න හැදුවොත් ටිකක් සමහරට අමාරුයි. සමහරට වාසනාව තියෙනවා නම් සමහරට opportunity එකක් හම්බ වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඊටත් වඩා ඔයාලට interview එකක් call කරොත් ඒකදී ඔයාලගේ දක්ෂතාවය කියන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕන. ඔයාලා කොහොමද project එක contribute කරන්නේ කියලා. ඒක අනුව තමයි යාලා select කරන්නේ. හරි. Then let me go into the substantial completion and taking over. So I have selected this topic because there are some catchy areas. Typically we discuss variations, then the delays, then the claims, but I decided to add substantial completion and taking of the works because there are certain things we can improve. We should know technical requirements, contractual requirements, so we can easily handle these situations. So what is substantial completion? If you check conditions of the contract, it clearly defines what is substantial completion. So work or section should be ready to be used for intended purpose. So first, if you want to apply for taking over certificate, if you think that work is completed, you need to satisfy yourself that it should be ready for the intended purpose. If it is a hotel, it should be ready to be operated. If it is not functioning, employer cannot take over the works. What he will do with the hotel if it cannot be operated? Then contract has to pass all the tests. If the testing is not done, still work cannot be handed over. But if there are minor outstanding works or defects, you can still apply for taking over certificate. So if you have fulfilled all these requirements, so you can apply for TOC. So if you refer clause 10.1 of the conditions of the contract, so you need to give request. You need to submit a request to the engineer saying that, Mr. Engineer, now I believe that I am ready to hand over the works. That notice has to be given not more than 14 days prior to TOC date. Yeah? So then engineer within 28 days from the request, he has to issue the TOC. So what will happen if engineer received notice and he neglect that, he didn't reply? So please read the conditions. It clearly says that if engineer doesn't reply for the TOC request, so it deemed that TOC has been issued for the project. So if you are working for the engineer, be careful with the correspondence. Whenever you see this kind of correspondence, you need to properly address it. We have seen that engineers, when they get notice, they immediately respond with the list of outstanding works. So they issue a notification. So because they have a contractual provision in the contract that they can issue a list of outstanding works. So then again, contractor has to go through the process to request TOC. Then beneficial occupancy. What is beneficial occupancy? Let's take a sample. So this is, let's assume that there's a contract awarded for a hotel and apartment projects. One contract, no sectional completions, one time for completion. So you have project. Contractor commences the work and he complete the apartment block, but he could not complete the hotel project because let's assume that he had some delays in supply chain management. He could not procure materials in time, so there is a delay. Now what will happen? If you follow the contract, contractor is in delay and exposed to daily delay damages under clause 8.7 of the conditions of the contract. So these delay damages will be substantial. So it could reach millions in mega scale projects. In few days, it will reach millions. So substantial losses to the contractor. In the other hand, what is employer's position? Now, employer was in the opinion that he will get both projects in time. Apartment blocks he has already sold. Now his buyers are waiting to come in. So employer's revenue will lose. So if the employer doesn't give his apartments to the buyers in time, buyers will claim. He will say that I have assumed that I can come and stay in your apartment from so and so date. And you have delayed the project, now I am incurring so and so losses, you need to compensate me. Even modern or the SPA agreement, sale purchase agreements allow buyers to withdraw from the agreement. Assume that you delay the project by 1 year from the agreed date. Employer can, the buyer can appeal. He can go to the court and say, I don't need this property anymore. I need my money back. So those legal provisions are there. So employer also at a high risk here. So he cannot simply say that, okay, I will apply delay damages to the contractor. Let him hand over whenever he can. But those delay damages may not be sufficient to cover his losses. And in the meantime, if you check the conditions, employer cannot occupy any part of the works without TOC. Okay, this apartment plot is ready. Can he simply occupy it? No. Without taking over certificate, he cannot occupy it. So that's where beneficial occupancy come into place. If you read clause 10.2 of the conditions of the contract, there's a provision that at employer's discretion, he can take over any part of the work. If employer thinks that he need to take over any part of the works, he can take over it, but at a risk. Whenever he take over any part of the works, contractors' insurance policies will get redundant. You cannot use it anymore. So, but this is a special case. The part of the work is ready. So employer has opportunity to secure that part of the work. So it is a win-win situation. So best case is to, if you are a contractor, you can apply for partial TOC. Let employer decide. We have seen, I have done. So if partial part of the work is ready, so you can simply request employer, Mr. Employer, we have completed part of the works, but the other part of the works will get delayed, but we can hand over whatever completed and you can use it for the intended purpose. So by issuing this partial TOCs, what benefits we will get? Contractor will be exposed to the reduced delay damages only. So clause 10.2 clearly says that if any part of the work is taken over by the employer, so you cannot apply delay damages for that part of the works from the TOC date onwards. So he has opportunity to reduce his exposed delay damages. And the other hand, employer can utilize his apartments for the intended purpose and avoid risk of revenue losses. Most of all, so you can amicably settle this issue. So you can maintain your good relationship with the contractor or the employer. Then let me go into the defect and performance certificates. These are already there in the contract. I highly encourage you guys, especially young engineers or young professionals, please read whatever applicable to your day-to-day works. Please check contractual provisions in the contract. Maybe you are a QA/QC engineer. There are many provisions in the contract applicable for QA/QC engineer. So maybe you are a project manager, very important. Project manager should know the provisions of the contract. Whenever they attend meetings, they should know what is his rights and liabilities, obligations. So now let's assume that TOC is issued and you are within the defect notification period, typically 12 months defect notification period. So if you are employer's personnel or consultant personnel, you need to make sure that you are notifying these defects to the contractor within the defect notification period. What will happen if you don't notify within the defect notification period? Contractor will come and say you didn't notify me defects in accordance with the contract, so this is not a defect anymore, or it will to be administered under warranties. Yeah. So make sure that you notify the defects in timely manner and formally. And the other hand, when contractor get a notification, he need to remedy all these outstanding works and defect with a reasonable time. So these are already defined in the contract. What will happen if we don't rectify them in timely manner? Contractor, the employer can notify the contractor and hire someone else to do it, because project is in progress. So employee is occupying the work. So he cannot wait. If something is defective, he cannot wait contractor to come and fix it in a couple of months. He need contractor to come immediately or within reasonable time. So be careful. So once you get a notification from the employer, attend and close it and keep your records. That will help you to avoid contra charges and later on at the final account. And one important provision in the contract, if a major plant or item is not working properly, which is holding the proper use of the works or part of the work for intended purpose, assume that you are an employer's personnel or consultant personnel. you can extend the defect notification period for that part of the work. You had a defect after 6 months and contractor replaced that plant after 6 months. And you cannot say that defect notification period is over after another 6 months. No, you can request another 12 months extended duration from the replacement of those plant or item. So this is a risky one. So contractor's retention will get delayed because performance certificate will not be issued in timely manner. So performance certificate will be delayed. So once the defect notification period is over, engineer has to issue the performance certificate. But if it is extended, it will get delayed. And similarly, final account or final statement will get delayed and contractor will not be able to claim second half of the retention. So being professionals in the industry, managing defect liability period, maybe you are working for a maintenance company or maintenance team of the employer or the contractor, but you should have an understanding about these provisions in the contract, so you can address them contractually. You can keep your records accordingly. So tomorrow you will not go into disputes. So I think I have covered some part of the duties of the project management consultant or the contract administrator. So if you wish to pursue a career here in UAE, so these are some of the guidelines which will be useful for you to deliver your assigned task. So I hope I have given some information for you guys. Okay, next we'll go to a different topic because Nalin requested me a couple of times. That is good to discuss technical points, but it is also important that there are a lot of people who don't know about the culture here in UAE. Sorry, before they take a decision to migrate or come for the opportunity here in UAE, they should know more about the culture here. So let me highlight some of the important things here. In UAE, so this is kind of a surprise that more than 200 nationalities are living here. Different nationalities, they are different, they follow different religions, they speak different languages, but they live in harmony very nicely. So if you check the population of 9.3 million in UAE, so you can see 35% of the population is Indian. I have added a small pie chart here, and 15% of them are Pakistan. And Emiratis, native peoples are only 15%. So they have provided opportunities for balance 85%. Whoever living here, they all have good opportunities. So the other part of the economy of UAE, if you check, see 2019, there were about 25 million visitors in 2019, but due to COVID, it is reduced to 12 million. We can clearly see that, but it is improving. So what will happen now in coming few years, these visitors will go up. So there will be more opportunities for hospitality and other sectors, tourism sectors. So there are great opportunities. So I have prepared a small table. So if you are planning to come for a job here, so what you can expect. So there are typical or certain standard rules and regulations here. So assume that you get an offer from a company here, you get an employment. So what you would get? You would get visa definitely. They will provide residency visa because there's no PR system here. So whoever work here typically get a residency visa for 3 years typically. And if you get a good package, so you might get also family visa as a benefit. So otherwise you will have to spend about 1,000 dirhams for one family visa. So you should know these before you come here. And one of the advantages here, so every employed personnel will get a health insurance. Most of the case, they are really good ones. And if you are lucky, you will get it for family. Then transport and accommodation, school fees, typically optional. People with manager level category, typically they get them. They get sometimes accommodation, but basically they get school fees. And other thing, after completion of 12 months, typically everyone get 30 days annual paid leave. So you can go to your home country and enjoy. And sometimes they give air tickets also. And typically working days are 5 to 6 days per week, or 48 hours per week if you are working for schedules. Yeah. මම මේකදී කිව්වේ දැන් මේ ඔයාලා මේ විස එකකට එන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා නම් ජොබ් එකකට මෙහෙ එන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා නම් මේ තමයි ටිපිකල් ස්ට්‍රක්චර් එක. එක්සෙප්ෂනල් කේසස් තියෙනවා. බොහෝ විට මේ වගේ පැකේජ් එකක් තමයි ඔයාලට හම්බ වෙන්නේ. ඔයාලා නෙගෝෂিয়েට් කරනවා නම් ඔයාලට මේව නෙගෝෂিয়েට් කරන්න පුළුවන්. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට ඔයාලට ෆැමිලි එක ගේන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා නම් ඔයාලට ඉල්ලන්න පුළුවන් family benefits, especially health insurance, because it is very important in this part of the world. Sometimes if you want to pay from your pocket, the cost for visiting a doctor will be substantially high, especially medicines. So it is almost compulsory to have a health insurance in this part of the world. So if you are getting an offer, if you are negotiating an offer, I highly recommend, based on your the position, you request for family benefits. Then in this table, I have just given some guidelines about your accommodation and transports. So if you are looking for a single accommodation, if you are coming here as a bachelor and you want to settle in, so you can find a sharing bed space where probably 4 people staying in one room. So that will cost you around 800 dirhams per month. But if you want a personal room, it could cost you around 3,000 dirhams per month. But obviously, these are including water, electricity, and internet. Basically, this is the cost for Dubai and Abu Dhabi. But if you want to settle somewhere in Sharjah, Ajman, or somewhere else in other Emirates, the cost will be slightly lesser. But if you want to bring in your family, these are some guidelines. For example, if you want a 1-bedroom apartment, it will cost you around 40,000 dirhams per year. So make sure that when you negotiate your packages, you allow for this cost. It is very difficult to survive if you don't get a sufficient monthly pay. This is an expensive city. UAE is one of the highest paid, and in the same time, the cost-wise also expensive city. One of the most expensive cities. And transport, there are plenty of transport options. So you can use public bus, metro in Dubai. It's highly versatile. It's easy to travel. They have developed it to such a level. So almost anyone can use the public transport nowadays. But there are other options like you can use taxi, Uber, or personal car. Getting a personal car is very easy. If you have a license in Sri Lanka, especially, you can get a UAE license probably within 3 months' time. You may have to spend around maybe 3,000 to 6,000 dirhams, but you can easily get it. And getting a personal car is not difficult. You can easily get it. There are many options. So what about the schools? If you want to move in here as a family, there are plenty of options. The schools are one of the best in this part of the world. So I have given some guidelines on some of the websites. You can go and check if you're planning to come here. There are plenty of options for British curriculum. And they will also cost you around maybe around 20 to 30,000 a year per student. You can check, everything is there in these websites. So what extra activities you can do? So there are plenty of options here. So you can join a music academy or dancing academy. Sports clubs are there, online courses, plenty of options. Leisure times, there are many options. There are very nice public parks, shopping malls, one of the best in the world. So if you like shopping, this is one of the best places to live in. Plenty of options, almost all the brands in the world. So, and adventure parks, plenty of options. So personally, when I have lived here for 15 years, I miss nothing but the nature in Sri Lanka and our friends and relatives. So this is one of the best places to live. So, ladies and gentlemen, so I think I have given you sufficient information and guidance. So thank you for attending participation.
Thank you.
Nalin,
thank you. Yeah,
can you hear?
thanks. Yes, thank you, Dinendra, and thank you very much. And I've seen a lot of hard works within your presentation itself, and there have a lot of animations and tables, a lot of extraction for sure. And thank you very much for your dedication and the contribution. And before moving to the Q&A session, I would like to have some my own questions before moving to, especially that I'm sure that there would be a lot of questions from the audience especially regarding this the family and the personal life. And we'll have those questions, and I would like to ask the whole audience, if you have any questions, please raise your hands, and we will give you the opportunity on the basis of the first in, first served basis. And we have few hand raised. There were a few hand raised. Before moving to these personal and family lives, Dinendu, I have few questions about this your previous presentation, and I could still remember about 10 years ago when I heard first time the car insurance supposed to be the vehicle insurance in my understanding. And this I still could remember that once you highlight the car insurance, then it was remembered to me. You mentioned about the car insurance, which is the contractor's all risk. At the same time, you mentioned something about the third-party liability policy. So is it included, or you mean to say that in Middle Eastern countries, you have to have a separate third-party liability policy apart from the car insurance for the contractor?
Now, what happens, Nalin, if you check the contracts, so contracts call for two different policies. Okay, one is the contractor's all risk policy, and the other one is the third-party liability. But when contractors go into market, they combine these two, and they take one policy and submit to the employer saying that, Mr. Employer, I have combined these two policies, but I have fulfilled my obligations together. So, but these are two different requirements, definitely, but normally they take as one policy. So contractors all risk policy will cover only contractors' works, material, plant, and contract documents. So assume that you have only contractors all risk policy, and there is a property next to the construction site, and by accident you throw something out and someone get damaged, or someone get hurt, or something get damaged. So you have to compensate the third party. So if you don't have a policy, third party liability policy, you may have to pay from your pocket as a contractor. Sometimes it could go in millions, especially if it is a death of a third party. It's a substantial case. So you must have a third party liability.
Okay, so you mean to say that it can either be amalgamated within the same policy, or you can have a separate policy.
Exactly.
Right. And I would rather happy if you can make a little bit of an elaboration about this escrow account. I think maybe in Sinhalese also, even in English, if you can take few minutes to talk about this escrow, because this is quite new for us. We know that escrow accounts here in Sri Lanka as well. So is it a joint account, or is it the property of the land or the real estate owner, or how it operates in a bank?
It is not a joint account. It is kind of a trust account. So bank act as a third party. So bank has certain liabilities toward the government or the law, that he can release funds in accordance with the law of the country, or plus the conditions of the contract between the contractor and the client, and the other one is the client and the buyer. So for example, there is sales purchase agreement. We call it SPA. SPA will have certain conditions. It will say buyer has to pay certain amounts in certain stages. For example, 20% down payment, and let's say 40% upon completion of the structure, and another payment after the completion of the work or handing over. Similarly, contractor also have payment terms. So is what the escrow account will do, or the bank will do, he will check these details. For example, if once the contractor is on board, the escrow representative will come and see. They want to see that when the funds get into the bank from the buyers, so they follow up with the employer to identify whether the main contractor's appointment in place or in progress. So if employer, main contractor is not on board, they are not going to release fund to the developer. So there is a control. So funds will be utilized only for the intended purpose. So if you remember, Nalin, in 2009 financial crisis, the most of the projects were without escrow accounts. The developers, they sell properties off plan, but they use those funds to build another project, another development. So when you have escrow account, you don't face that situation. So whatever funds you get in from the buyers will be used for the intended purpose only. You cannot reallocate them. So that is the whole purpose. Yeah, this is a government regulation, so it's a must.
Yeah, even in our country also, because we have certain projects, but there's no any mandatory legal requirement by the government. But I would rather happy, like, if you can establish it in, especially in the real estate business, and we are in a difficult situation. So the contractors or the buyers would definitely get certain guarantees. So mean to say that this sales or the purchase agreement, is it a type of a three-party agreement, or is it a tri-party agreement sort of a agreement, or is the bank? Yeah, please.
Now what will happen now when, for example, if you want to buy a property, so when you know that this construction is going through escrow account, so you have that guarantee already. So when you pay money to the escrow account. So you have that guarantee that funds will be utilized only for that purpose. So you don't have a separate agreement with the bank, but you have that guarantee by law.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. And I think Chandana or Sarasi, the organizers are there. I think before moving to the official Q&A session, if we have this advertisement to be played, then we can take about 2 minutes break. We have certain sponsored advertisement to be played, and I think you can stay for maximum of 30 minutes until 9:30 from Sri Lankan time. Yes, thank you very much. I know for a fact that you have to spend time, especially in the weekend, with your family and the kids. And
No,
thanks
this is a
for your.
special case. I'm always there.
Thank you very much. And Chandana will move ahead with the advertisement, and then we'll come back with the rest of the Q&A session.
Nature is a masterpiece. Preserve its beauty while surrounding yourself in the transcendent aesthetics of your dreams. Embrace a world of elegance and sustainability with Swisstech Aluminium. Swisstech Aluminium. Live in elegance.
Thank you, Chandan. And organizers, if you can ping Dinidu, I think we can make Dinidu on screen, and at the same time I can be on the screen as well. And ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, please raise your hands. And Dinidu, starting about this substantial completion, I think this is quite a bit of a controversial area where people would sometimes even go for certain disputes as well. So in Chatura's presentations 2 weeks ago and in last week as well, there were some points about these substantial completions. Those completions and the milestone completions, or somebody can say in program, is it defined in the contract, or because this program or this milestone being created once the contract is awarded? Or is there any places where it's mentioned, this is how I need this substantial completion, like for example, maybe the certain phases or certain levels or certain properties? Is there any areas to be referred in the contract document?
Yeah, exactly, Nalin. Yeah, this is very important question. Okay, when you draft contract document, that's why you need to be extra cautious about these things. So typically, so you have one time for completion where it is defined. If you check appendix to tender or appendix to contract, time for completion is defined. You have commencement date. Typically, time for completion is given as a duration. So if you want projects to be handed over in sections, assume that like my example, you have a hotel tower and apartment tower. If you have two time for completions, you need to define sections. You need to say section 1 is hotel. So I need the hotel to be completed by so and so date. And apartment, similarly, you can define it. It could be the same date, but once you define that, so once one section is completed, contractor has entitlement to apply for TOC. Similarly, engineer can determine. So you cannot, you don't need to ask employer's discretion. So 2 sections are already defined in the contract. So engineer can determine and issue the taking over certificate for completed section. But if the sections are not defined, what will happen? So we will have only contractor's program. If you have attached a program, you have the contractor's program. Otherwise, the baseline program submitted by the contractor after award of the works. If that program does not define, or if that is for full work, so the work has to be managed accordingly. So you cannot define at post-contract stage. It has to be done at pre-contract stage.
Okay, thanks. And then I think this could be the entrance to my next question, because sometimes what I experience personally, and I'm sure that you might have the same experience, sometimes the contractor or the developer himself would have his own discretion, or maybe he has certain targets at the midways of the contract, like I need these areas to be finished, or just change the order, then I need this building to be finished beforehand, or I need these areas to be finished, because sometimes his requirement get changed. If it is a 5-year contract, then sometimes in Sri Lankan context, I have an experience with one big mall, hotel, and an apartment is in the same mixed development project. So once there were certain priorities, but in this context, like the COVID pandemic and before even the Easter bomb attack, he wants to slow down the hotel operation or the hotel construction. Instead, he wants to put some much more effort into the shopping mall where the domestic businesses are there. Then he simply changed his sequence of completion. He asked the contractor, please slow down the hotel works and please give the priority to the shopping mall, which is the lower 10 floors. So if those sequences being changed, how this has to be happen in contractually, financially at the same time, especially the time for completion.
Yeah, and Nalin, another good question, but it is clearly defined in I think variations. So assume that you award the project to the contractor and he planned his works. He is doing a lot of behind the scene works, and he planned his work accordingly and submit a baseline program. And engineer approves that. And midway of the project, now employer want to say, Mr. Contractor, don't do this. I want something else at this stage. That will change whole program of the contractor. There will be substantial repercussions, and there will be additional cost, mostly additional cost, unless you find a better way to do it. So therefore, if you check clause 13, the change of sequence of the work is treated as a variation. So if engineer or employer want to change the sequence of the work at a later stage, this will constitute a variation. So whatever the additional cost incurred by the contractor due to these changes has to be compensated.
And if you can elaborate something about these crash programs as well, because the other challenge is sometimes the contractors being asked to do projects in a crash manner, like if you have accelerated timelines, like if you have a new work and they will simply say, okay, don't take 6 months, I need to be done it in 3 months, but the additional cost can be paid. So how this has to be handled and how these estimations are done?
Yeah, the best way, in my opinion, best way to do these kind of things is a mutual understanding or mutual discussions. I have experienced this kind of work. One of the projects, that was maybe around 15 years ago when I was a fresh graduate here, when we were doing Palm Jumeirah one of the biggest projects actually in UAE. So we had a situation, the employer want to accelerate part of the works, but they didn't simply instruct contractor to proceed with the acceleration. They requested a proposal from the contractor. Mr. Contractor, we want to accelerate this work. It was additional work, but they wanted to do it exactly what we have mentioned. They want to do it in a rapid manner. They made a mistake, or maybe they got some changes at later stage of the project. Because of that, they don't want to give an extension of time to the contractor. So one way of doing it, you simply instruct the contractor, and contractor come up with EOT and prolongation cost. And that is a hazard to negotiate, evaluate, negotiate, and even you could end up in disputes. So better way to manage as a project, especially project management consultant, is to request a proposal from the contractor. I have this additional work, but this has to be completed in so and so date without impacting the original program. So they will give a proposal. You don't need to agree the price upfront, but you can give a conditional approval. Let the contractor substantiate the actual cost. Assume that he want to deploy additional people. Agree with him that, okay, I will pay you for your additional deployment. So I will pay you for additional the prelims requirements. So then you need to monitor and approve those costs. But important thing is that you can solve the matter amicably. You can have a better solution.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Diridu. And the audience, that if you have any questions, please raise your hands. And for your information, your attendance sheet would be displayed in your chat box and the YouTube streaming by 9:15 in maybe maximum of 8 minutes time from here onwards. And we have 2 hand raises, and the organizers, can we give opportunities to, number 1 goes to Mohammed Rafiz.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I would know about that, which I am working the project that we already handed over. It's like a storage project. We have different zones. So with that taking over, we already given to certain zone, and another zones are undergoing the construction in final stage. My question is that once we taken over, completed almost 2 years completed, then another zones are under construction. But sometime employer is requesting to do kind of some, it is actually not a defects, kind of damages and all after handing over, partial handing over, completion almost completed 2 years back. So now they are asking to do some work at particular that zones. So how can we deal these things? Actually our responsibility is completed as based on our partial taking over particular zone, but such requests are continuously made by the employer to attend it. So how can we deal these things? Could you please clarify regarding this?
Yeah, I understand your situation actually. In fact, I have faced the same situation in many projects, but you need to understand the contractual provision. Contractual provision is quite clear. Once the TOC is issued, so defects notification period is 12 months. If it is 12 months in the contract, it's 12 months from the TOC date.
But
so
it's
maybe,
kind of
I get your point. Let me come to your point. Now you have the other part of the works which is not completed, and TOC for that is not issued. So you have partial TOCs. So it doesn't mean that defect notification period for the handed over works will continue until you complete the full works. Defect notification period will be completed contractually once 12 months is over from that partial TOC. But you won't get the performance certificate because only one performance certificate is issued for the whole contract. So contractually it is not correct, but practically I know you find some difficulties. So best way, your management, or you have to write first contractually that whatever they are doing is not correct. So you need to secure your contractual position by notifying them that it is not part of the defects. Maybe it may go to the warranties. Still, you may have to do it, but you can at least justify that it's not a defect. And maybe your management can intervene and discuss with the client directly to solve the matter amicably.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Apart from the one more question, shall I ask another one more question?
Please go ahead. Please.
Sir, during our defects period, still some zones are under defect liability period. At the meantime, as a contractor, we didn't do any intentionally do kind of mistakes.
Sorry, line is not that clear.
But third parties, it's like and we like the pipe.
Mohammed, your line is not clear. If you wouldn't mind, just use the chat box and type it very briefly, then I can take it up. Please go ahead with typing in the chat box. Thank you. And for your information, for all your information, these disputes and the arbitration, these, as Dinidu highlighted here, these amicable solutions and this mediation would be our last part of the next week. We have this arbitration and the dispute resolution segment as our 8th session. For next week, can we go ahead with Engineer Cyril Kumar Cyril? Cyril, we can see one of a hand raised from us. The organizers, can they make themselves unmute, or do we need to give them some? Okay, please go ahead. Please.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
My question is whether there is any maximum age limit. What is the maximum age limit to be eligible for to get an employment of the UAE?
Frankly, I'm not aware of that. I know that probably if you are 20 plus, definitely you can apply. But
no, I think he's referring the upper limit. I think upper limits.
Upper limit?
Yes, he's because
upper
I know
limit is
him.
Typically, yes. 65 years. Yeah.
65 years.
I think up to 60, up to 60 years of age, there's no issue. But I think 60 to 65 maybe still your employer will have to request a special approval to grant a visa. Yeah.
Under the conditions of the medical certificates and all, I'm sure that.
Yeah.
Kalum Sirivardhana? It's a different Kalum Sirivardhana. We both know we know Kalum Sirivardhana, but that is not that Kalum Sirivardhana. This Kalum Sirivardhana is from Gaul, I believe.
From Gaul, yes.
Yes, Kalum. Yes, please go ahead.
I have same question related to previous question. How we know about the vacancies and other things? They are the companies publish their website. So, is there any procedure to find out them, and how we apply that post?
Yeah. I understand your concern. Yeah. The Kalum, there are few options. Okay, most advanced option is that if you have right qualification and if you really believe that you can secure an opportunity here, you need to visit here. But you should understand there are risks involved with that. Okay, you need to pay for your tickets and you may have to spend for your accommodation and all. But there is a chance that you will be called for an interview. Okay. And the other thing, you can see the websites. Sometimes you can directly apply, find the consultants or contractors available in this part of the world, and you can directly go and apply. You have opportunities. They have given, most of the companies, they will have a section for careers. So you can apply, but I must say that most of the case, they look for people staying here, at least on visit visa, to call for an interview. But if you are a professional and you really have a talent for a special profession, so there are chances that you can apply for better opportunities. Especially the multinational companies, they look for talent. They for example, if you are a certified structural engineer, and you are competent that you can deliver the task here, so still you can apply, but you need to do your part. It is not readily available. It is a competitive market. All over the world, people are looking for jobs here, but improve your skills and apply. Yeah.
Thank you, Dinu. And I think that LinkedIn profile would definitely help you out. And if you have a strong LinkedIn profiles, I think that could be one of a
Yeah, exactly, Nalin. Yeah. That is one of the main channels. Yeah, nowadays the HR consultancies, they look for these recruitment channels. Yeah.
And I think that Dinitha knows well about myself. Then the best and the workable solution in my case was the personal contacts. Kalum, that what I think is the personal references are one of the key of getting opportunities, getting better opportunities, to be precise.
Yeah.
Lakmal Isru. Lakmal. We have Isuru. Hand raise. Is it a mistake?
Okay.
Oh, please go ahead.
Good evening, Alina. Good evening, Dindu.
Good evening. Good evening.
This one question, I think the very first question Alina asked before, I think he stressed about the contract always. So I have heard and I have issues from one of the contractors, being I am a subcontractor, not for the car policy, but for the EAR, erection road lease. So can you elaborate what are the differences in that? Because as per my understanding, erection road is a particular task not for the cover entire project. Suppose being I am a subcontractor, I can issue only for my work as a erection road lease policy, not for the contract road lease policy. But contract road lease policy can only be issued by the main contractor, covering all the maybe subcontractors and other subcontractors area. So let me know my understanding is right, or is there some other meaning?
Lakmal, in fact, I need to actually get back to you. I'm not quite sure about this, the policy being asked from subcontractors. I will check and refer back to you. Yeah, if you can just put a chat here, so we'll get back to you, Lakmal. Yeah?
Because the issue here is in Sri Lanka, this is not applicable for mostly for the civil contractors, but in the service contractors. But as an MEP professional, even my case also, we have the same issue called EAR, erection all risk. Instead of contractors all risk, I think maybe even in the insurance companies might have that issue for erection all risk, because this is not applicable for the whole duration of the contract, because that erection happens in a particular duration. Like for example, lift installation happens maybe out of 3 months for the whole duration of 5 years of the project. Therefore, going for 5 years risk, I think going for a 3 months duration, you will get some sort of there's like the benefits at the same time. The risk can be properly calculated, because in MEP field, most of the times in Sri Lanka, I'm not aware of this Middle Eastern country, we get EAR.
Middle East, frankly, I have not come across, frankly, Nalin. So typically when contractor provides the contractor's all risk policy, because that's a mandatory item. From the start of the project, contractor has to submit the all risk policy, so they take it for full value of the project. Maybe they want to cover part of the risk, so they include these insurance policies within the subcontract agreements, but it won't be submitted to the employer, I think.
Okay, right, understood. Maybe that they might simply segregate into under his different.
Just to cover the risk, yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you. And we have one question from Bandara, and the whole audience, if you have not marked your attendance, now it is available in the chat box and the YouTube stream as well. Please go ahead and mark your attendance. Bandara.
Can you hear me?
Please, yes.
Yeah.
You can proceed.
So I have a small question that if we work in UAE, are there any opportunities to learn, do our higher studies like masters or PhDs or whatever like that?
Definitely, there are plenty of options, especially for masters. If you want to do MBA or master in engineering, there are plenty of options, but you need to know one fact that they are quite expensive if you compare with our education system. So we should appreciate our education system. You feel that if you want to study here, it's quite expensive. There are plenty of options, international universities, and highly qualified, highly recognized degrees and the higher degrees, but expensive. You need to keep that in mind. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dinitha. And there was a hand raised from Yeah, thank you. And we have a hand raised from Arus. Until he comes in, we have the same question from another question in the chat box. When a project is partially handed over, the contractor may start the maintenance period at the same time. Then it could be a benefit to the contractor by reducing the cost, isn't it?
Yeah, so if the TOC is issued, so it will automatically commence the notification period and the maintenance period, which is the defect notification period, 12 months.
Yeah.
But you will find some difficulties in when you submit the warranties, because one performance certificate is issued. So typically, consultant will ask you to give warranties from the date of the performance certificate. But that's a matter to be discussed and agreed.
Okay, thank you. And as an extension, I could remember that once you mentioned at the defect liability period itself, like within 6 months of DLP, if there is a major plant defect or defect of maybe one of a key plant, then that could be rectified by the contractor or the supplier. Then the client or the employer can demand for an extended warranty or extended defect liability period. Again, I mean to say that again he can start for request for another 12 months. Is it, because from the point of a contractor's point of view, I feel that is it fair enough, or is it because the duration, the 12 months duration is for the supplier or the main contract or the nominated contractor to rectify those errors?
Yeah, but
is it the fair way of doing it, or?
Yeah, I think it's a fair way of doing it, but you don't do it for minor outstanding works. For example, assume that because of failure of a plant, one section of the building is not usable, and contractor comes and replace that the plant as a new one. So employer, he should get a defect notification period for the 12 months from that new plant. Correct? For the new plant, he should get a full notification period. What will happen? That plant again get damaged after 6 months. Contractor will come and say, Mr. Employer, your defect liability period is over. Assume that there's no warranty. So contractor's liability is over. So I think to secure that warranty issue or the liability issue, I think that provision is there in the contract. In fact, I have not seen practically they have extended defect notification period for such kind of issues here.
Okay, thank you. And the organizers, there are some requests from few attendants that attendees that they couldn't mark their attendance due to the failure of the signal, and I would rather happy if you can resend or put the attendance Google form again in the chat box, please. Chandana, Sarasi. Okay, thank you. And we have Mohammed Rafiz again. I think you can ask your question, Mohammed.
Yeah, I already sent my question in the chat box also. However, shall I proceed by voice call that regarding that during the construction, LDL liquid defects period, the damages are continuously doing by third parties, but as a contractor, always they are attending, but it is not like everywhere here and there third party damages are happening. So what is the position contractor take to avoid such measures through the FIDIC?
Mohammed, if I'm not mistaken, you meant that, okay, the employer is rectifying the defect by himself with a third party and notifying the contra charges to the contractor. Is that the case?
No, sir. We are in the contractor in the defect period, but several damages are doing by third party to contractor properties. But we already notified the employer. This is beyond our control. It's again and again happening. So employer requesting the contractor to attend such damages third party during defects periods continuously. So how to deal these things?
Yeah, the contractual position is quite clear, isn't it, Mohammed? So you need to contractually notify with the evidence that this is not damage or it is not indeed a defect. So you need to keep your records and notify the employer saying that, okay, these are damaged by employer's personnel or employer's contractors. So I don't think that you are responsible, or as a contractor, you are responsible for these damages. Yeah.
Thank you, Mohammed. And there's a important question because I had the same experience as well. I think you can properly answer it. Somebody tell that can't convert visit visa to working visa under the new visa regulations. I think you have to go back and have that working visa once your job offer is confirmed.
It's possible. I have seen quite a few people have done it. Maybe it may depend on the employer, but most of the employers will be happy to do it. Maybe the employer will have to pay a small additional fee, but I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Okay. Because in our times, I'm talking about 12, 15 years ago, I had to come back to the country. Yeah, things got changed. And even I saw that even our times, it was the Friday, the holiday. Now it is already changed into Saturday and Sundays.
There are plenty of things to learn. See, being Muslim country, so normally the Friday is the praying day. But they had guts, or they had a vision to change that to Sunday, because they want to align with the world, because they want to go to the world. They said that, okay, if you don't work on Friday, you are basically losing one day. So you will interact with the world only 4 days. So they want to change that gap. So they have taken that decisions, the strong decisions, which you see, these are things we should learn from them. Yeah. But in our part of the world, you see that how many things will happen if you want to change certain things. Yeah?
Definitely that we may
First
not
of
be
all,
able
people
to.
will object. This is government is going to change the culture.
Okay. Thank you. Then Mohammed, your hand raised. Okay, right. And there was another question. I think this is an important question. What are the memberships such as IESL in Sri Lanka we should have in order to work as a civil engineer in UAE?
Nalin, I need to get back to you, because now I'm, though I'm an engineer, but now I'm a commercial guy basically. So I work for contract administration. Frankly, I don't know the exact, one thing for sure, they have to get approval from Dubai municipality. Government registration is required, but it is not that difficult. That's what I heard. But if you are a qualified chartered engineer, the examination would be rather easy. But I can check and get back if any specific approvals are required. I can check and let you know, Nalini.
Please appreciate. And I know for a fact that this Washington Accords received by the IESL after 2012, I believe, that is applicable for the all-around applications. So that Washington Accord, especially the new engineers who got the graduation and the charter, that could be helpful worldwide. And there was another question. I'm doubtful whether Dinu can answer this. What is the average salary for a fresh graduate? We can give a good figure to encourage the Sri Lankan fraternity.
It depends. So, see, the one thing is finding an opportunity here. So, my advice: so if you are a young graduate, and if you want to really pursue a career in this part of the world, get an opportunity. You can change it, no problem. Get the experience, because nowadays, when you want to join an organization, they will look for Middle East experience, because the experience in Middle East and in Asian countries, other Asian countries like India and Sri Lanka, quite different. So they will look for UAE experience, Middle East experience, or Western experience. So please grab your opportunity. Then you can change it. After 1 year, you can change it. You can demand it, but grab the opportunity. But it depends. Salary really depends. Certain companies, they just pay maybe around 3,000 dirhams, but some companies, they pay 7,000, 10,000. It really depends on the organization. If you're lucky to get a good organization, so they will pay. They want certain organization, they want to pay their employees well. So they will serve their companies well.
Thanks for the encouraging answer. I'm sure that because here you are talking, as especially Dirindu talks about with experience under his belt of 15 years. So entrance is quite tough, and there were certain questions about that as well. How we can get this UAE experience? It is nothing but just to enroll as quick as possible. Then only you can get this experience. And
just to add one thing, Nalin. So especially if you are a young graduate, this is the right time to come and engage. But when you have a family and kids, it's really difficult to come and settle here because expenses are really high. You cannot afford it. But being a bachelor, you can share your accommodation, you can use public transports, you don't have education fees. So that's the right time to come. I think we have done the right decision at that time. Nalin, you were there,
Yes.
and I came here. So we just fresh graduate, 1 year experience. We are lucky to have jobs, and I'm happy that the decisions we made. Yeah.
Yes, thanks. There are a lot of questions in the chat box, but I think mostly they are not relevant here. One question is project management role defined for architects or engineers as per FIDIC? I think this project management is not a role, but it's a firm, right?
It is a firm. If you check the FIDIC, there's no reference for project manager. So it is recognized in only the engineer. So engineer will do all the task, contract administration tasks. The thing is, when you are an employer, so if you don't have sufficient technical staff, or if it is a mega scale project and you don't want to get involved with day-to-day tasks, then you need to appoint a project manager so he can oversee your work on behalf of the employer. So that's the role of the project manager typically. So generally they don't have authority to instruct any changes or additional works, but he is the representative for employer.
Okay, thank you. And apologetically, this could be the last question, Binidu. The COVID situation, this COVID situation an excuse for the project delays? And is this excuse acceptable? The contractors are taking it as an excuse. Maybe is from a client's perspective, this question is asked that what about this COVID situation being handled in terms of extension of time and the delays?
Yeah, for contractors to take it as excuse, first he has to establish that he can be excused in accordance with the contract. But frankly, I have not seen any employer or engineer approves COVID as an excuse for delays. I don't think that there are explicit provisions within the existing contract allowing COVID to be excuse. But I have seen certain issues like material shortages, or you don't find a separate specific material. So being a contractor, when he's getting disturbed or when he doesn't find the relevant material, so when contractors reach out to the employer or engineer, they provide solutions. They are quite flexible. That's what I have seen. So, but I have not seen that any employer or engineer has granted extension of time or the prolongation costs for these delays.
Yeah, that's another strong decision they have taken in Middle East, because Dubai have not closed for this COVID. Dubai and Singapore, I could remember, because in our country, Sri Lanka has closed for a certain period, and obviously the questioner asked about these certain excuses, because we Sri Lankan used to get excuses for any reason.
If government has issued a specific laws holding or suspending the works, then he might get legal rights. But I can't recall that it has happened here. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Then the time is flying away, and there's a final question is, because I can link that question to my comment as well. So is there, if there are more questions, how can I contact you? I would rather happy if you can give the permission to share your presentation, number one, in a PDF format, or if you can just edit it. Whereas if you can put your WhatsApp number for others to contact, is it a better way of contacting you?
Yeah, I have no problem. I can, Nalin, you have my number and email ID, no problem. You want me to put it in chat box? I can put it, no problem.
Yes, please. And at the same time, if you can put into your presentation itself, contact presentation, then I can share the PDF version throughout the group. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm putting your numbers into the chat box.
Yeah, I added it. You need to put
0099715.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the mobile number of
Yes, you guys can see it.
Yes.
So you can reach out to me wherever possible. Whatever experience I have, I'm ready to share. No problem.
Okay, and please try to use this country code as well. And this is the country code I would remember, 0097155. So,
I will type it again so better clarity.
okay. Okay, right. This is the standard format of the number goes like 00971 555 018 764. With that remark, ladies and gentlemen, Dinidu, and thank you very much. Thanks a lot, and spending more than 2 hours right now, but I'm sure that you have spent a lot of time before the presentation itself to prepare
It was my
yourself.
pleasure, actually. And thank you for having me. It was a great experience.
And you can take few minutes, even in Sinhalese also, you can give some final remarks to the audience, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, ඔක්කොටම මට අතරම කියන්න තියෙන දැන් ඔයාලා බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා නම් මෙහි ජොබ් එකක් හොයන්න. ඔයාලගේ එකක් තමයි මට දැන් මම අවුරුදු 15ක් මෙහි වැඩ කරා. මම ඒ අවුරුදු 15 ඇතුළත ගත්තොත් මම අතරම කම්පැනි 3කයි මට වැඩ කරන්න ඕනේ. තුනකිනුත් අතරම එකක් තමයි මම චේන්ජ් කරේ. ඒ මොකද මම වැඩ කරද්දී ඔයාලා වැඩ කරද්දී නැරෝල හිතන්න එපා. දැන් ඔයාලට ටාස්ක් එකක් ආවම හිතන්න පුරුදු වෙන්න ඒ සම්පූර්ණ ටාස්ක් එකේ ඩෙලිවරබල්ස් යටතේ. ඔයාලා හැමතිස්සෙම ප්‍රශ්නයක් ආවම බොස් ළඟට යන්න එපා ප්‍රශ්නට උත්තරේ හොයාගෙන. ඔයාලා උත්තරයක් ඔප්ෂන්ස් දෙක තුනක් අරගෙන බොස් ළඟට යන්න. ගිහිල්ලා ඒ ප්‍රශ්නේ කතා කරලා ප්‍රශ්නෙට විසඳුමක් දෙන්න. ප්‍රශ්නයක් කරන් යන්න එපා. ඒ වගේ ඔයාලගේ ඇටිටියුඩ්ස් ඩෙවලොප් කරගන්න. ඒවා ඇත්තටම ඉම්පෝටන්ට්. එයාලා ඉස්සරහට ජොබ් එකක් කරද්දි මෙහෙ ඇවිල්ලා වුණත් කමන්නේ. මේ මුල් අවදියේම මේ good skills ඔයාලගේ මේ කැරියර් එකට දාගන්න. එතකොට ඒ කවදාවත් වරදින්නේ නැහැ. එතකොට ඔයාලගේ කම්පැනි යන්නවත් ඒ කම්පැනි හිටපු අය ඔයාලා වෙන කම්පැනි එකකට යද්දි කතා කරනවා. එයාලා වෙන කම්පැනි එකට යද්දි කතා කරනවා. මෙයා හොඳයි. මෙයා ගන්න අර නලින් කිව්වාගේ personal references එනවා. ඒ ඇටිටියුඩ්ස් ගන්න ඔයාලට එන්න පුළුවන් නම් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම මේ young graduatesට blog opportunities තියෙනවා career එකට මේ ඒව හොයාගෙන career එක develop කරගන්න. ඒක තමයි මට දෙන්න පුළුවන් message එක.
Thank you. Then I think that the final icing of the cake was the most important part, and that the final message was so strong and so useful for the whole audience. With that remark, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to conclude the session today, and we are meeting by next Sunday 7:30 the same time, and that would be our final presentation. It's relevant to the arbitration and the dispute resolution management, so please join with us. At the same time, you can share your knowledge, and we have put everything into a YouTube channel where you can simply see from session 1 to session 7 right now. By today, we will upload the 7th session as well. So share with your friends and use it as much as possible. And this learning, or this CPD, continuous learning, continuous professional development, is a never-ending exercise. Please make use of it and make a habit of learning. And thanks a lot, especially Dinidu. Thank you very much. And we have a lot of people behind this screen. I would like to highlight Chandana, especially leading engineer Chandana, leading the training units of CECP and CESL, and helped by Sarasi, and the CEO of the CESL, which is Mr. Engineer Alvis, and helped by Ishani and Dilum, and especially the Submaster Kapila and Sanjay. And today we have Danushka as well to help give their helping hands. With that remark, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. You have been a great audience, and I would like to see a developed professionals in the future to make our country to a different and a successful place. Thank you very much, and have a pleasant evening. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.